In this short video, we're going to introduce you to some of the essential principles of geolocation, which is a method used to work with open source data and find out where, and usually when, it happened. Open source information is gathered from a range of sources, but essentially it's publicly accessible. So it might include articles, news sites, blog posts. It could be something posted on Twitter or shared on a Telegram channel. It's all about access. And just to explain the background and for this research, so my name is Nick Yazikov. I work with the Digital Verification Corps, which is part of Amnesty International's efforts to generate a larger network of students, especially, who learn to verify and work with a range of open source content in order to assist with Amnesty's investigations. I'm a graduate student at the University of Cambridge, and I've previously also worked with the Red Cross and various organisations to verify open source information. In this video is going to take an essential structure built around two main case studies. The first one will be led by me, and the second one by my co-leader of the Digital Verification Corps, Laetitia Maurat. We're going to cover some of the principles of geolocation by applying it to a simple case study taken from Ukraine. In this clip, you can see a drone footage of a drone that's supposedly flying over Mariupol. The source here, Sean Walker, claims that it was shared by Ukrainian officials, so we don't have a clear chain of custody. What we can do, however, is we can go through the video itself and look for clues that might point us to be able to help us work out what actually happened, where it happened, and whether what this claim is true. The first thing that we're going to pay attention to is the name and the profile of this person. So we can see, if we go to their profile, that they're journalists covering Central and Eastern Europe for The Guardian. So they're clearly someone who's not necessarily in Ukraine, but they're using sources that might have been shared from Ukraine. We can see they have a significant following and that they share a range of content. So in terms of basic source analysis, that's what we can start with. If we go back to the video, we can also pay attention to a few key details. If you look at the bottom here, we have metadata. So we have the date, the time, and the type of media device that it was posted from. We also have a number of retweets and so on. So we can see that this video has got a significant amount of traction that's been shared throughout the internet, and that it's no small sort of piece of content. So it's worth us having a look at. We can also notice that the time here says 10:29 a.m. And this can sometimes be confusing because the time that's given on Twitter is time based on your location rather than on the location at which it was posted. So if we want to work out the actual time at which it was posted, we'd have to adjust it to the time zone of the person posting it or of the clip itself. So that gets a little bit confusing. So we've got to always pay attention to that. There are several ways in which you can approach verifying a video. We're going to cover a couple of them here. But the most common is to start with a reverse image search. What this allows you to do is check if an image has been posted before on the internet. So what Google or Yandex or several other search engines will do is they'll break the image down and essentially compare it to other images. This is useful because you can, first of all, verify if it's ever been posted before this date and therefore probably isn't a claim. But also if there are other instances, sometimes that might be longer or that might contain different details in the metadata or that might have a different description that might point you in the right direction. A really useful tool for doing this is called Invid. What you can do with Invid, and it's a free Chrome extension that you can download, is you can paste, for example, a Twitter link here, submit it to the server here. What it does is it breaks it down. It gives you all that metadata that we spoke about previously, such as the likes count, the thumbnail image, the profile of the person, where it was posted from and where they work from. So we see Hungary, which is interesting. We see several details like this. But what we can also do is then take thumbnails or break down the video here, if we feel like it, into keyframes and reverse image search those keyframes. So that avoids us doing the manual work of taking a screenshot and downloading it and posting it to Google or so on. So if I complete a quick Google search, it's going to take me to a new tab here. Immediately I see that other instances are coming up. So this suggests to me that this is not a unique incident. For example, we can see 14th of March from the New York Post, various different websites posting it and so on. So already at the start, we see that there's something here. Yeah, we see various stuff like this. What we can also then do is we can also compare this to Yandex. Yandex actually sometimes is more powerful or gives you a different range of images. So Yandex brings up, again, actually a broader range of clips, including from various sites, Russian sites, social media sites, Levkontakte, Turkish sites, and so on, like here, Russian sites. So we can see that there's clearly quite a lot of this content, perhaps with different counterclaims. So what we're going to have to do now is we're going to have to drill down a little bit more into what this video actually is, getting towards the city, so we might be on the outskirts. We also have this crucial long road here, and that seems like a detail that we're going to need to not ignore. When we come to this clip, though, we see the same road that's clearly an important access in our geolocation, but also we see a sign at the front here. Signs are really useful clues in geolocation. They're usually geotagged because they're actually some sort of shop, so they will want to have some sort of online presence. And that's a really useful way to find where something happened, or at least to start to triangulate where something happened. There might be multiple locations at which a specific shop or a specific cafe is in the city, and we can start to work through them. In this case, if we zoom in a little bit, we can see that it seems to be 3 letters. So they're hard to make out, so we might have to try a few different instances to find the exact one. But I was actually quite lucky in this case. When you type OB shop Mariupol, you get this. OB. So it's clearly some sort of German supermarket. So we can see that there's various options that we can look through. If we turn to the first website that pops up when we Google OB shop Mariupol, we see this, world places with a little Ukraine tag. We just go down and we see, we're very lucky in this case, not only does it say Margot Hypermarket Möbeli, so Margot supermarket furniture store, as it conveniently says in English, we also have what looks like an address and above GPS coordinates. I'm not going to lie to you and say that this happens all the time, but it's lucky in this case, and we can start to work with this. If we turn to Google Earth Pro here, we can enter the location in the coordinates that we find there, and it brings us to this. So clearly I've already got little pins in because I've geolocated this before. Pins are a really useful way to actually work with open source data. Not only do they preserve what you've got within Google Earth, but they also allow you to start to think about it spatially, to start to work through different bits of different clips, to link different instances that you found before, and also to go back maybe a long time later and actually generate really useful data from what you've done. And indeed, if we start to consider this, this really looks like what we were looking at originally. Not only do we have 2 buildings, as we had in the video, if you consider here, not only do we have 2 buildings that we can see in the background, but we also have these buildings at the front. These were the ones that we saw being bombed with the explosions at the beginning, and these buildings in the background. We can even see, if we zoom in, the actual OB triangular sign. And then we have these buildings in the background. So in this case, pretty convincing. Obviously, you don't always get this result. Rather than just trying to convince you that geolocation is easy or that every case you'll find a good result, what we're trying to show here is that geolocation and generally verification is a process of creative problem solving. It's about trying out different things, failing, trying again, working with different kinds of data, paying attention to small details, sometimes details in the background. Also, it's about thinking spatially and thinking about how different things relate to each other. In this case, a diagrammatic presentation is really useful. Sometimes I'll like to draw out a little image for myself or create a little 3D model that I can start to think about. And that allows me to then go to satellite imagery, for example, and start to scan for them. Here we have this distinctive L shape of that sort of industrial estates area, perhaps a parking lot that seems to have been transformed over time, because we need to remember that satellite imagery might date from a while before, particularly on Google. And then we can also work with information like shop signs and text. This might be difficult if you don't speak a language. In this case, we're lucky again, it's Latin wording. If it's in Russian or if it's indeed from any country in the world, we can have to start using translation software. I really like using Google Translate. You can actually download the app on your phone, scan from in front, sort of scan by holding it in front of your screen, and it gives you the result by extracting it directly from an image, for example. So it works quite well, and that allows you to expand the kind of remit of your verification process. I hope this covers some of the essential principles, and now what I'm going to do is turn you over to Laetitia, who's going to cover some of the other aspects and lead you through a slightly more complicated case study that she's encountered in her own work.
Hi, I'm Laetitia, and I'm a graduate student from Cambridge with a BA in law. I'm about to start a Masters of Arts in Global Thought at Columbia in New York, and I was also the coordinator with Nick for the Digital Verification Core last year at Cambridge. I'm going to be walking you through a second case study that will help you understand that different approaches can be taken when conducting geolocation. People might have different skills and expertise which will be used differently and can complement each other when conducting an investigation. So this second case study also takes place in Mariupol. As you can see, it's from a video and it's from the Telegram channel. Telegram is a little bit different to Twitter, but the process starts the same. I always start by translating the caption so that I can understand what's going on and maybe give me some idea of what's going on. Here, I translated it into Google Translate, and it just tells me that it's Mariupol, which I already knew, and that it's ongoing street fight. So it doesn't really give me any information about location, date, time, anything like that. So the next step I do is look at the Telegram channel and see if there's any information I can gather. Here the name is general, descriptive, nothing really helpful. It tells me that it's a channel that has Ukraine content. Maybe it's journalists, maybe it's repos, maybe it's someone on the ground. I don't really know. All of the videos from the channel seem to be related to the Ukraine conflict, but it doesn't really help me with my investigation in this context. So, the other step I do is reverse image search. So, searching for the image using something like Google, Yandex, Tinai, or Bing can sometimes be the most productive approach to geolocation, especially when there's little textual information in the source image, like we have here. Reverse image searches can be used to find if a piece of content is unique or not. So I'm going to show you an example here. So here I use Invid, and I have a Twitter post with pictures. I use this picture. Now I have the Chrome extension on already installed for Invid, so I just click and use Invid to search through Google. What this does is it plugs the image into Google and it tells me if there are any similar images, as you can see here on the screen. Now, the first image catches my attention, so I go to the link and I see that it's the same image from the Twitter. However, looking at the date, the article was published on the 4th of February 2015. Here, I'm working in the context of the current Ukraine conflict. This means that this image is not useful for me because it's in fact an image from an earlier time. So I can then label this image as fake. So that's how an InVid search works. You plug in through Google or another search platform, and it then brings you results. Sometimes you find something similar, sometimes you find nothing. It depends on what you're searching. So this is what I did here. I plug in the image into InVid, and it gives me similar results. Now, here I don't find the exact same image, but I do find on Twitter an article that seems to have a similar image. And it's in fact a tweet that I think is from the same location, and it has been published at similar dates, which makes me believe that it might be the same incident. So, what I do is I take the Twitter video and I take the Telegram. The Twitter is on the left and the Telegram is on the right. And what I do is I find things that are similar and see if I can find them in the two images. So here you can see in the blue box that there is a blue building here. The blue building I can also see on the Twitter. What I can also see in this green box is a little window painted blue, which I can also see here. And what I also notice is that the layout of the building seems to be the same in the way that it is perpendicular to each other. So I'm now pretty sure that the content is the same place. So I'm going to use the Twitter video, which has more information, to try and locate. What I do, again, is I translate what the caption of the Twitter says. Here, there's a lot more information. I'm told two key information: gas station Marshall and a street name. So these are two information that I can start gathering and using to see if I can find a location. So the first thing I do is open Google Earth and type the street into the Google search bar, and results come up. So I search it and see where it brings me in Mariupol, and that's where I'm going to start my research because that's the only information I have to start with right now. So I have to use the little information that I have to try and construct a bigger picture. Now, the first thing I notice from this street is that there are 3 buildings that could potentially be where my incident has taken place because of the different layouts of the buildings. They remind me of my earlier observation, and so I start in this area. Now, to find this, I had to go through the street and look carefully and stop where I thought might be the most relevant. I might be wrong, I might be right, but it's all about trying and see if you can find more clues that then make a bigger picture altogether. The second thing I notice is what seems like a blue building you can see here. Now, I need to be aware that there is a shadow, so the building might not in reality be blue, but it kind of looks blue, so I'm going to start with this. The second thing I notice, which makes me think that I am in the right place, is that I see a gas station sign that says Marshall, and if you remember from the tweet caption, we had Marshall gas station. So this probably means that you're probably looking in the right place. What I do next is try to see if the building shape potentially lines up. So if you can see here, the building is quite distinct in the way it's laid out. And what I did, because sometimes I find it easier to visualize things if I draw them, is that I drew the outline of the building from the telegram and wrote blue where the building is blue. But as you can see, the shape is very similar here, from my drawing and from the picture, but just the other way around. So this makes me think that I am in fact in the right place, and that it's just switched from this particular point of view. So this leaves me to think that the fire is in this circle that I have indicated, and it was behind the Marshall gas station, and someone could have potentially filmed it from this angle. We could have seen the fire, we could see the blue building, we could have seen some blue windows somewhere along here, and if you remember from the drawing from the previous slide, it does line up to the layout that I thought. So this means I found the correct coordinates, and I then add them to the spreadsheet, and I also add the Twitter link so that someone can see how I managed to reach the conclusion. So as you can see, this was a mixture of reverse image search, a bit of luck on Google Earth, but also spotting the details from the building, spotting the details from the 2 different videos, using Google Translate, and then plugging everything in and building a bigger picture as you go. Now it's very easy to get lost, so if you need to write steps down or write clues down as you go or work in pairs to try and figure how the puzzle pieces all fit together. Now, once we have the coordinates, there are a few things to consider when you're publishing results. So, the American Academy for the Advancement of Science has published a useful set of guidelines for publishing location-based data in crisis situations. They recommend that you only share this information with a purpose and that you need to take extra caution to consider the manipulation or how this data might be shared, especially in conflicts. The QR code above will lead you to this resource, or you can simply Google these set of guidelines and it'll bring you to it. It's important to consider where you're publishing it, on what platform, with what aim. All these things are important, and it's easy to forget the impact that our publishing might have, but it's important to keep this in mind. Another very important thing when considering geolocation is self-care to try and mitigate vicarious trauma. So here are a few tips and tricks to try and help. Try and adjust the image size, so never view an image in full screen if you don't need to. Mute the audio, you never know what you might hear, so maybe watch the video without the audio, then watch it with the audio but not too loud, and see if it's a language you understand or if there's anything useful. If there isn't, just keep the audio off. When viewing particularly graphic corner, it's helpful to look at the right hand corner of the screen, and then you'll see the general picture, but you won't notice and it won't be as graphic. Maybe mask out any particular distressing images. If, for example, there's a body or something like that, maybe try blurring it. Take frequent breaks. It's very easy to get sucked in and spend hours looking for things, but you have to take breaks and take time to take care of yourself. And also, talk to other people about the distressing content you see. Talk to your friends, family, colleagues, people you're working with, and tell them what you've witnessed to try and talk you through it. Thank you for listening to this short video. If you'd like some more resources, there is an open source investigation course for academics in which we take a critical, theoretical and ethical aspect of the methodology with the aim to being for students, academics, various people, to be able not only to carry out, but to also critique open source investigations. You can check the link here with the QR code, and also if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send us an email. Thank you.